And welcome to the 81st Ask the Coach. Those numbers are just going up and up and up. Well, we're here every 2 weeks to answer your questions, anything and everything to do with hiring, the recruitment industry, whether you're in-house, agency, supplier. But a little different today. We've got a negotiation special. I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym. I'll get our coaches to introduce themselves in a second. We've got 6 questions already been asked of the coaches. Actually, I take that back. We've got a 7th. Thank you, Lynn. We've got a great question from Lynn as well. We'll be tackling that for you. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, whether you're on LinkedIn, in the comments, or here in Crowdcast. If you want to vote on a question, because you might not have 45 minutes to stay with us and you want maybe question 5 to be answered first, vote on it. It might get pushed up the list and we'll answer it earlier. If not, we just go with the 1, 2, 7 that we've got today. Okay, let's get started. We've got some newbies and some oldies for you. So let's start with our negotiation specialist and pricing strategist, actually, Jon Brooks, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello. Yeah, that makes me an oldie, right?
It does, sorry.
Good to see you. Good to see you, everyone. I'm Jon Brooks. I help recruiters with their pricing strategies. And obviously, if you're agreeing a price with a client, you are negotiating a lot of the time. I do try and help recruiters move away from the expectation of negotiation that so many clients have. But obviously, clients are going to negotiate. So this is a really good topic, and it's nice to have 4 views on it as well. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Kate, our BD and disc coach.
Yeah, so I'm the gym's disc specialist and business development coach. I can't remember the last time I came on Ask the Coach, so I'm super excited for today. And this is like a really interesting and meaty subject, I think, for all 3 of us to bring a lot of value to. And not that it's in any way my question, but let's put some votes in for number 2. That's the first one.
Let's negotiate on that. Just add
Should we
one
negotiate with each other on what question we should be having first?
Gary's trying to downvote 1.
It's not down to you.
I'm going to vote 1. How do I vote 1?
John's getting in there now, voted just to make it up there. Right. Gary, lovely to have you. It's been years, actually, since I've seen you. I met you over in the Far East. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm still there, Angela. Thank you very much for inviting me tonight. I'm Gary Woolacott. I'm currently in Thailand, which is where I've lived for the past nearly 30 years, working in search for almost all of that time. And I also cover Vietnam and Laos, so I see quite a bit of Southeast Asia. We're an old-fashioned headhunting company, Fortin International, and that's what we do. We like to think we do it very well. So I'll come on to more about that later.
You do it very well. So yes, we're looking forward for that information from you. Okay, any queries, any questions, stick them in the chat, everyone. We're going to get cracking because we've got 7 questions to answer. So Gary, I am coming to you for question 1 because John's already voted on it. Yeah. So let's focus you. As a search company, how do you justify your fee being potentially twice that of a contingency recruiter?
Now, that is the trickiest question to start off with, isn't it? Because it is on everybody's lips. Everybody is price conscious, whether they say it or not. Well, as headhunters, executive search consultants, whatever you want to call us, I don't mind. We kind of think that it's more important to get to the quality end of stuff than the quantity. So we'll do all the sourcing and assessing and reviewing that every other recruiter does, at least I hope they do. But then it's the in-depth service that we'll be providing that I think is where we make the difference. We usually work on an open book basis with clients. We'll show them everything we've done as far as market mapping, long listing, short listing, why, how we've done it, where we've been. And by working very hand in glove with the client, we like to think we're providing a much more personalized service and a much more accurate way of getting to the best candidate. And that's the other thing about it. We're getting to the best candidate, not the best available candidate, but the best candidate. So that involves comprehensive written reports on each candidate on the short list, as much as we can, a competency match, expressed as a percentage for skills, attitude, aptitude, whatever the client wants. If it's relevant, we'll do that. And the last thing we do on this, which I think marks us out, is we write a summary of each candidate and their resume. And I've just done some today for a client in Australia. And the reason is that we don't rewrite resumes. We don't have a standard format. We are just going to give the client the resume that the candidate gives us. For most people, it's the most important document they ever write. So let's see how they do it. And in this part of the world, not everybody has great English, amazing English. If I wrote them, they'd all be pretty good English, but that isn't how people are. And when they get to their jobs, they're going to have to produce reports. Let's see what kind of report they can produce on themselves. So that's an important area that I distinguish how we and justify why we charge considerably more at times. And as you've said, often double. And then there's all the psychometric testing that we can bring in. Sometimes we throw that in as part of the deal for the shortlist or the final two candidates. 360 reviews, detailed background checks, anything to ensure that we get the very best candidate. So there you go. Long-winded answer, but that's broadly how we do it.
I must admit, if you've not been in an executive search and you've come from contingency, the first time you see the report and the market research and the information that those high-level executive search companies provide to the client, you then realize, okay, yeah, this is another level. This is something totally different. And it might be that contingency person has been picking up these little tidbits of information and knowledge, but to actually put it in a comprehensive report for each client to then identify the best person in the market, as you say, and you're doing that with confidence, it's definitely worth the money from my experience, because again, the fill rate as well is you're so much more likely to actually fill the position, aren't you, if you're in that situation?
Well, and not only filling it with the best person, but keeping it filled. Because all those steps we go through ensure that we're very rarely called upon to exercise our guarantee. So it's really important. And at the level we're working at, these people's careers are serious. And we feel bad if somebody goes to a job for a short time because they've stuffed their resume for a little bit and then they've got to rebuild that. A candidate who doesn't work out disappoints everybody, themselves, the employer, and us. So it's really good to avoid all of that.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that, Gary. And hopefully, if anyone is thinking about maybe getting into executive search, that's definitely one reason why they would want to do that. And if they're out in Thailand or Vietnam or Laos, should they contact you?
Absolutely. And even if you aren't, contact me. I accept every LinkedIn invitation pretty much, apart from the people trying to sell me life insurance and that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. Well, we've got your link in there on LinkedIn. Obviously, you've got the coaches there with their profiles. So do feel free to contact them. Right. Okay. Let me switch off my first question. We're done answering. I'm going to have to put my glasses on, otherwise I'm not going to see what I'm doing. Right. Kate, we're coming to you. Let's focus you. We've got, we've got, do I need to adjust my approach for different personalities? And if I do, then how? This is your forte, isn't it?
Yeah. So my answer to that is yes. And I think this is something I got quite wrong, particularly early on in my recruitment career. Because I kind of thought, well, this is my way I like to communicate and negotiate, and kind of people need to adapt to me type thing. And that's the way it is. And I think we've got to remember that all the clients, and I suppose we negotiate with candidates as well, don't we? But if I think about just clients at the moment that we negotiate with, they're all different. They've all got different personalities. And what we've got to remember is if we're trying to be strategic in how we navigate these conversations, we've also got to be strategic about how we communicate and deal with that person based on their preferences. So in regards to how, I think you've got to and try get into your client's world essentially and understand and look into them, their personality, what you've noticed from the communication you've had so far. So for example, if you've noticed that up until this point they tend to be the type of person that asks lots of questions, wants detail, facts, likes to mull things over, maybe reflect a little bit, you being really pushy in a conversation and wanting an answer there and then could lose you the business. And actually it could pay off for you to just give them a bit of time to think about what you've propositioned to get then potentially a better yes out of it. Mm. There are going to be other people like myself, for example. I had this yesterday with somebody from EE trying to get me to do a phone contract. I'm a there and then decision maker. Give me the info. Yeah, I'll make a decision, go for it. I'm quite a bit of a risk taker, and I'm happy to make a quick decision. So if you've got somebody on the phone to you, or you're in a meeting with somebody that's like that, and maybe you're not naturally that type of person, you've got to fall in line with that as well, because they may be the type of person to want it to be a done deal and negotiate with you there and then. And yeah, let's get it done. Let's make the decision. So, and there's obviously people in between that as well, but you've got to, if you push too much the other way in line with your own preferences over the client or the candidate, you could lose a massive opportunity. So you've got to kind of read the room and really get into the mind of your target market to think about, well, how are they going to prefer me to be in this scenario? I hope that makes sense. It's quite a big topic, but
yeah, no, it totally does. Because I was with a group last week, and it was quite a revelation for them around the different personality types. And there was so much in the room where they suddenly realized, oh, no wonder the boss just wants the basic information and they'll make a decision. And there were others that were, when you go all around the houses and you take forever to get something, I'm already switched off halfway through. So if you're trying to negotiate someone and you're doing that, you've lost them. And then you've got those people that do need lots of time and won't make a decision like you at a snap. They want to reflect on it. They're good old reflectors and take their time and think about it and come back to you. So again, those people, if you're pushing, you're going to take them out of the equation. They're going to go, well, no, that's okay, thanks. Because
we'll put them off. Yeah,
exactly. So being aware of these different personality types is really critical, isn't it, to then adjust your approach. Your actual strategy might still be the same. It's the approach.
It's all about adapting that approach,
and the way that you communicate with them. John, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, just an example. I love what Kate was saying. If you've got someone who does want to take that information away and think about it, and you are trying to close the deal in the moment, there's a danger like, oh, let me give you another discount. Let me give you another discount. Let me give, in order to close the deal. You've given away loads of money that you didn't need to. You might have only needed to have that initial first step of negotiation, let the client go away. They come back and say yes. Instead, you've packed that meeting. You've filled those silences. Oh, I'll go lower, lower, lower. And suddenly you're 20% down on the fee you could have had.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's the same with any conversation, isn't it? You need to hold those silences and let people have time to think. But human nature, we do tend to want to add something in. And unfortunately, in negotiation, you're likely to add something in that you didn't need to. So good points there. Thank you, team, for sharing that. So I'll click my done answering and I'll pop Kate to the left. And we're going to leave John on stage because our next question is around how do I give the consultants the autonomy to negotiate in the moment with the client? So we're just talking about that while still having some level of consistency across the agency or the recruitment consultancy. Yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, and I think both parts of this question are equally important. So we don't want our consultants, we want our consultants to be talking ideally to decision makers. We don't want them to come across as like, oh, I have to ask the boss every time. We want them to have that autonomy. We want them to present themselves as peers to that decision maker and have that conversation, that negotiation. But what you don't want, whether you've got an agency of there's 3 of you or 30 of you or 300 of you, you don't want everyone going off on their own view and in their own way. There's only so much you can train people in great negotiation. And if we are recruitment consultants in our 20s and 30s negotiating against, for example, a finance director in their 50s who does a lot more negotiation than we do, we might end up losing. So what I highly recommend is at an organizational level having some kind of agreed framework. So not rules per se, not saying, right, this is our fee and this is the lowest. If you only tell your team, don't go lower than this, you only end up with that lowest level. So we don't want that. But a framework to say, oh, you could take this off for this, you could take that off for that. So suggestions, ideas, prompts. And one of the key phrases I like to use is make sure all of those ideas in that framework justify the value you're giving, the service you're providing, and the price you're agreeing. So if the price is going lower, how are we justifying that? Is it that we're getting something back from the client? Is it that the client is giving something of value to us? So if we're getting more access to the hiring manager, that might be a reasonable thing to say, yeah, that's justified that we take that the rate down a little. We don't want to just say, oh yeah, I can drop the rate for no reason. So, and the reason we want to do this is, as it says in the question, we want that consistency. Otherwise, we really start to trip up internally across the business. People say, well, why are you charging that? Why are we charging this? And the kind of nightmare scenario, what if you had two clients in the room together, which you'd like to, if you've got a specific niche sector you're working with, those clients might talk. What if they say, oh yeah, I pay them X% for my recruitment, and the other one says, oh, hang on, I pay more. Yeah, without justification, that sounds awful. We really don't want that situation. With justification, we can say, oh, well, I pay a little bit more, but I get more for it. Or, oh, I got a bigger discount because there's so much more embedded with me. Yeah, the outcome of that conversation might be the first client says, oh, well, can I go more exclusive? Yeah, let's have that conversation. These are positive justifications as to why we negotiate a deal with a client. So hopefully that kind of framework concept is helpful.
Yeah, and letting the client know those reasons why, and having the discussion is really helpful. But of course, if you're going to have a framework, you really need to train it and practice it, because in the moment it'd be like, oh my God, which was which? So whether they've got some support document to help them with it.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity to do role plays within the office, within the team, to say, okay, what would you do in this scenario? And they can all then explore that and add more things in, because you want as many variables as possible that you can first add in to the negotiation, can't you, to try and get full fee. But then, okay, what are we going to take away so that we are negotiating, we're getting something back from the client. So love all of that. Thank you. Gary, you want to add something?
Yeah, please. John, I love it. It's exactly what we do internally in country and in the region. And we've discussed it. We've agreed what is the minimum, and that's how it's going to go. Another thing that we do is to empower people. If they want to, they can commit the firm right there and then. But equally, some people, and I do it myself, I'll say, I like it and we're ready, but I want to go back and check with my partners, with my colleagues, whatever it is. And that can be powerful. And that can also then spur a client to say, well, it's okay, we'll agree all this now. Like, okay. So as I say, we've done that in country, and partners across the region, we can commit the region to a search or a series of searches across the whole of Asia Pacific on a handshake. And I think that's very powerful when people have that agency, to use an overused word, on behalf of their agencies.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angela.
Well, it does make people feel a lot more confident, doesn't it? To be empowered and to know that they're doing the right thing. There's not going to be hesitation. I certainly remember as a new consultant not knowing the boundaries and not knowing the parameters and forever having to go back and check. So I learned very quickly to say, oh, let me go back to the office and crunch some numbers and then I'll let you know this afternoon. I don't know what I'm doing. So until I got that training and that support, that was my get out of jail free card, so I didn't sound like I've got to check with my manager.
But that really can take the heat out of a negotiation. If you've lost the upper hand, you don't have to continue the negotiation in that moment. You can step back. So Gary, great example. You can say, let me just, I need to crunch the numbers. I need to work this out. I need to negotiate some stuff internally, make sure we can do this and deliver the level of service you're also asking for. Step back, the negotiation calls, then you come back in and you've got more chance of getting what you want.
Fantastic. We've got loads of good hints and tips there for people to be able to take on board if they're not utilising them as yet. Kate, I'm going to bring you on because we're halfway through. So quick shout out to our lovely sponsors, JobAdder, for sponsoring Ask the Coach and also Meet the Expert. If you didn't see this week's Meet the Expert with Glenn Martin, we'll put the links in there for you around values-based hiring. It was fantastic, and my pug even made an appearance. Now, I wanted to bring you all on because I want you all to have a go at Lynn's question. So let me bring it up for you that she's thrown in. Would like to know about this situation. She sent terms to a company in the EU, wants to see the CV of the candidate that she knows is suitable for their role before signing terms. So company, can we see this CV? And then we'll decide whether we sign terms. So free for all here. What are your thoughts? Can we get a thumbs up or a thumbs down as to whether she should do that?
No.
Well, I mean, for me, of course, they're going to want to see the CV before they sign the terms. How convenient. So, for me, it's they've got to appreciate that them signing the terms, they obviously can then see the full candidate CV and then they can go and engage with that candidate. Before that, it's too much of a risk to us as a consultant, isn't it? I think sometimes that maybe it can come from maybe the client not understanding how recruitment works. I don't know, but I think that for them to get the value and the hard work that's gone into finding said candidate, there needs to be things in place to protect us and the work that we do. So for me, it might be you send an overview of the person, but to have all their details and everything sent through before, we're massively at risk then, aren't we, for all the hard work that we've done? So for me, it would be a no.
There's absolutely that risk of not getting a fee, but I think a bigger risk is the legal aspect. Here in Thailand, we have what is called the Personal Data Protection Act, and we build a clause into our client's contract that says they acknowledge that they're bound by that act. And my understanding of GDPR is that that's similar. So if an agency is sending a candidate's resume to a client, they should have that candidate's written consent to do so. And the client should be on notice that they are bound by GDPR as well. And I, as a recruiter, as a manager of a recruitment company, I want that protection because you expose yourself to all kinds of data risks if you don't. That would be my take on it. But I wouldn't do it anyway because I think it's terrible practice to start handing out resumes for free.
Yeah. I mean, it's a flat no from me, but to give you a slightly broader answer, I think potentially one conversation, if you want to go beyond just no, is, well, there's a lot in the terms. What is the client worried about, or what is their concern? We often say terms to mean fees. So maybe they don't want to lock themselves into fees. Maybe they want to negotiate on fees. So then we can say, look, Gary's point is a great one. There's so much important, vital legal stuff in our terms that does need to be agreed. So you might say, look, the terms need to be signed for this reason. If it's that you don't want to lock yourself into a price for the next few years when working together, sign the agreement. We'll agree a one-off price if you take this candidate on, or we can negotiate and we can negotiate other prices separately in order to get over this roadblock. But yeah, you're not getting it without signing the legal parts of the terms of business.
Yeah, not a good idea to start the relationship with a lack of trust, really, isn't it? Yeah. let's not go there. Thank you for that, Lynn. I hope that answers your question. If you've got a follow-up, feel free to put that in the chat. Right, let's focus, Gary. We're on to question 4. I recently had someone say that there is no win-win when you're negotiating. It's not possible for both parties to win. So what's your view, Gary?
Well, I always try to get a win-win. If you're going to work with people again, you've got to have a win-win. And this was something I learned in my first career, before you were all born, you were all in short trousers at school. In the 80s, I worked in the city in corporate finance, M&A work. And it had to be a win-win situation then, because if you treated it as a zero-sum game, winner takes all, then the problem was that the people you'd worked with on this transaction, this deal, the lawyers, the accountants, they might think, yeah, that's fine. But the next deal you're on, they could be on the other side. And they're saying to their client, watch him. He's a bit dangerous. He's tricky. He won't take any prisoners. And then everything becomes very, very frustrating. So I learned to leave a little bit on the table and search for the best possible outcome, the win-win. And sometimes that means dropping a fee a little bit, maybe, or extending guarantee terms, or whatever there is. There's always something that can be done. It's rare to find a situation that isn't solvable if it's a negotiation with a client about that kind of thing. Trying to win at all costs, not my style, not our style. We don't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand when they said this, that there is no win-win. Someone's got to lose somewhere. And I can understand that if there is going to be a win-win, then you are looking at compromise in some way, shape or form. But that's where the negotiation comes in. Surely that's the negotiation point, that you are asking for some things to give away some others. And that's where that compromise comes from. So I didn't want that to carry on and be out there and say you can't get a win-win when you're negotiating. As long as you're happy with what you've ended up with, you've won, haven't you? And that works both sides. And recruitment, actually, we're a win-win-win, because the candidate has to win out of it. Otherwise, they can very easily lose as well, can't they? Yeah. So it's 3 wins in this way, but it definitely can be done. So I thought that was important to put that in there, because I don't want that permeating out that everyone, okay, only one person's going to win out of a negotiation. No, I don't believe that either. So thank you for sharing that. John?
Yeah, the one thing I'd add to it, I agree. I think you want the client and the candidate to be getting what they want from it. Just an extension of that, lots of people then say, oh yeah, let's just meet in the middle. We want this price, you want that price. Let's just meet in the middle. We can do better than that. So Gary had some great examples of what else we can offer beyond fees. Because just meet in the middle, especially if we're not justifying why we're doing that, we don't appear like we're valuing our service. So absolutely, if the client is looking for a reduced fee, we might be able to help with them with that. But we can also help them with extended guarantees, or if payment terms are an issue for them. So one of the nice things I think about win-win is it makes you think, well, what does a win mean to my client? And actually, what does a win mean to us? Let's make sure we know that. And then let's work through that to make sure we're negotiating on things we value, rather than just saying, oh, I'll give you some money off. And the client didn't actually want money off. They wanted more reassurance, or they wanted the cash flow is their big problem, or whatever. So find out what their win is and work to that.
Yeah, critical to know the objectives from both sides, isn't it? That way you can then establish what's going to be right for everyone. And sometimes a win can be taking a loss. as a loss leader, because you know there's going to be so much more to take, but be very careful with those ones. Just put that out there as a premise. Right, thank you. Question 5 then. Let's get Kate on the stage. So done answering on 4. Make you the focus. Right, question 5 then. Oh yeah, this one came through and someone was talking about negotiating. They said, well, what attributes does someone need to have that would help make them a strong negotiator? And thought this would be good from a personality point of view as well, from your side.
Yeah, so I think one of the words that springs to mind is confidence, but I want to give more detail on that because I think, and it's come up already as we've all been talking, I think it's having that confidence in your worth and your value. And I think what ties into that is the knowledge around your value. Because you're not going to have the confidence in your value if you don't know it, if that makes sense. So that's your value as an individual consultant, the value of the agency you work in, you know, the what that brings, the service that's provided, all of that good stuff that comes into that. Because I think negotiating can become quite difficult if you're lacking that. So we've just talked about you know, sometimes, you know, the win-win situation, compromising, all of that stuff. We don't want to go to, like Jon was mentioning, just give up and go low really quickly, because we need to understand the value that we bring. And if you have that confidence, it makes those conversations, gives you, you know, we were talking about the power of, you know, okay, well, I need to go and have a chat with somebody about that. It gives you that empowerment to say things like that, because you think, do you know what, I know my worth and I know what we bring to the table, and this isn't something I'm going to give into so quickly. I suppose communication skills come into that, and what ties into that as well for me is patience, because, and again, coming from somebody that used to be 100 miles an hour, and I still am a little bit as well, there can be this focus on getting something now, focus on now. And actually there comes this confidence and, again, empowerment in taking a step back, and sometimes I'm going to have to think about that. And that really shows people that you takes away that kind of desperation feel sometimes, that, look, I don't need necessarily your business. We want it and we have value to bring, but I'm not desperate for it. I'm going to have to go away and have a chat about that or think about it. And I think that gives a really strong impression of, I suppose, that, yeah, that confidence in your worth and your value.
It is really critical, isn't it? And knowledge gives you confidence. So back to Jon's point earlier about having those parameters and knowing what you can do and when, and
100%
practicing it so it comes easily to you and you know where you stand. But then the market will change and then you'll need to relook at those things, because again, when supply and demand moves around, your value is still the same, but potentially, I'm thinking about when it's a real candidate driven market, then yeah, you can stick to your guns really easily. But when it's not, and you know there are loads of good people out there and potentially the client can do it for themselves, it's looking at the other elements and the time and the hassle element of it, rather than the fact that you can get at those niche people that maybe they couldn't before. So there's always flexing. That's what I love about the recruitment industry. There's always a challenge, because whatever market it is, there's a challenge. So it needs to be someone to make, yeah, so tenacity, I'd say, another attribute. Gary, what would you add as attributes?
Well, just knowledge of the cost of recruitment. I put up a post on LinkedIn some weeks ago called "Opportunity Cost: The Silent Killer." The silent thief, not silent killer. And it had a huge response, because most companies probably don't know how much it costs them to recruit. And I used the example of a client of ours. After 3 months, internal HR have been saying, we'll find this person. Don't worry, we keep sticking the ads up on LinkedIn. Somebody will come. And my contact called me and he was just going nuts about it. And it took another 2 months of that before they could come to the point where they signed an agreement with us, and we completed it in 5 weeks. So they've been working for 5 months. Now, the cost of that, the HR people, the management time, his time, then, you know, as well as the wasted cost of all their activities, the opportunity cost of no sales, no pipeline being built, all that stuff. You add that up, our fee what is it then? 5% of all of that? Peanuts. So armed with that knowledge, it's easier to make the case of why recruitment search is a sensible and cost-saving proposition, even though they may balk at the fees at the beginning.
Yeah, when you work it out, I can remember doing that exercise actually and working out all the time elements so that you could do a cost analysis with the client. Okay, if you do it yourself, let's work out. There were so many things that they never thought about that was costing them money and adding to it, as well as all the issues of not having the position filled, because that then can be infinite, can't it? The morale can go in the team. You can lose really good people in the team because of it. So it just snowballs in that sense. I found your post. So that's in the chat there as well. So if you want to go and have a read of that, please do to find out a little bit more about that information as well. Right. Okay. We're on to our last question. We've done well today. So thank you, guys. Let's have a look. So question 6 then. So Jon, we're bringing you back on. It's yeah, the classic. How do you deal with clients who tell you to match another recruiter's fee and say, well, you can either take it or leave it? We've all heard this one.
Yeah, we've all heard it. Everyone will hear it this week as well, probably. This came up in the chat beforehand, so we all had a look at this, and in the chat we were all like, leave it, walk away. That's the easy answer. I'll try and go a bit deeper. Let's look at it from different scenarios and different people, because we're going to have a range of people in the audience here. I think if you're running your own business or if you're in control of your business, it's much easier to say, right, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to step back. And I'm sure all 4 of us in our experience have had experience of we've walked away from business because the fee has been too low. It's not a fee we want to work, or other parts of the negotiation aren't what we want to do. And then the client comes back either a week later or a month later, or Gary, maybe 5 months later. And then we win that business more or less the rate we wanted. And from a long-term perspective, we do a good job with that client. We win them again. That means those fees are always at that higher level rather than us having dropped our pants in the first place. So that's the easy one. Leave it, walk away. However, let's think about it from the view of a consultant working in a larger organization with a manager. Actually, are you in a position to walk away? And I want to ask managers who are listening to this as well. Are you creating the context and giving your consultants the confidence and the signals to say, walk away from bad business? And there's a lot going on here. You think, recruitment is a sales-driven environment. You might say, oh, yeah, walk away from bad business. Oh, why haven't you got enough jobs on? Oh, you're not hitting your targets. So it's important for those in power, when you've got a team under you, to think, oh, of course we'd leave it. Of course we'd walk away. But are we actually signaling that? Are we actually creating an organization, our own business, that encourages that? Or are we actually driving our consultants to say, I don't think I can afford to walk away. I think I have to take the hit, agree the low fee. So I think let's get deep about this. Let's reflect on this. Let's reflect on what we're actually doing rather than what we say we should do.
Yeah, because the longer term impact of that as well, of taking the hit, and the impact that has on you as an individual, knowing that you're not getting your worth and you're not being valued by that client, to then do a great job and blow the other agency out of the water, because of course you do, because you charge more, you're a better agency, whatever the reasons are, to then have to go on and say, okay, now we're going to do it at my fee. And they're like, no, you did it like for that fee before, you can do it again. You've set yourself up for a bit of a disaster for the future. It's very hard to come back from that. So setting those expectations right at the beginning, and also knowing, what's going to be the impact on you longer term if you enter into this, and have that discussion with the client. I had no issue talking to the client about it, because you can say, well, look, if I do it for that fee once, you're going to expect me to do it again for that, aren't you? Literally just yes or no.
And they nod and say, absolutely. Yeah, we want to take, we want to pay you 20% less than you think you're worth every single time.
Yeah. So how's that going to be in the relationship? Gary, what's your thoughts?
Well, maybe my client's listening in, because we're doing exactly that with him at the moment. It's a global company. We are everywhere that they are. And there's a job that we're trying to do here in Thailand at a much lower rate than we would normally. But the proviso is that when we've done a great job, we go back to normal rates that we've worked with them before. But there's a simple mantra that I try to remember, which is there's always somebody who will do it cheaper. No matter where your fee is, there's somebody out there who will do it cheaper. So it's a very slippery slope if you're going to start discounting just because they ask.
Yeah, I can hear the cat's not happy.
Well, we've had discussions about that.
The cat's saying, don't do that. Okay, let me just share this. It's not quite ready for presentation yet, but when you talked about that in the course, it's on draft at the moment, but I have put it in there because I love these pictures, and I think they really do show and make a difference when you've got a client asking you to do it cheaper. So I tend to go back with some of these pictures. Let's just make this big so you can see it. This was the mural in Italy, the beautiful painting of Christ, that they paid someone to redo it, to fix it, and look what happened. I'm sorry, but that just makes me giggle every time. You look at that and you think, how did they think that was going to be acceptable? Have you seen this, you guys?
On that, the resemblance is striking, isn't it?
I think it's quite good. I couldn't have done that.
Well, that's the thing. You look at it.
To be fair, I wouldn't be able to do that either, but
what were they thinking? So we've got one that Gary shared earlier as well. Yeah, there's always someone that's willing to do it cheaper. Oh, my screen's stopped for some reason. There we go.
Yeah, that's classic, isn't it?
I love that.
I'm going to have to zoom in a bit because so they can see. I think that's as big as it goes. It's a beautiful, I'm going to say horse dragon then, but Pegasus is what I'm trying to say, isn't it?
Pegasus, yeah.
Horse dragon.
Menopause dragon. Horse dragon, you know what I mean. But I could do that one. I definitely
couldn't even do that. I won't lie to you. Brilliant.
And then this is always
my favourite one, that one.
I've used this so many times, where you've got the 3-year-old child at the front and the stubs at the back, but so they're in I've put those in the course it's on draft at the moment. It'll be open this afternoon, just so that people can see that. Be careful when someone asks you to do it cheaper. There is always someone that can do it cheaper, but what type of job are they going to do? So feel free to use those if you're in a negotiation. It's like, I can do it cheaper. This is what it's going to look like. Brilliant. Look at that. We got a minute left. Love it. It's because I went over last time and I don't often go over. So I get excited when I get the right times. And we had the extra question as well from Lynn. So thank you from that. So we've got Gary's extra link in there about the cost opportunity. So you can explore all of that. We've got the Meet the Expert sessions and the Ask the Coach. We actually provide 8 pro bono courses, thanks to our wonderful sponsors. We've got Job Out of Here. We also have Monster that sponsor us, and Jobbing Cloud as well, to do these sessions. So there's lots of stuff available for people in the recruitment industry. There is no excuse that you shouldn't be learning every day. Every day is a learning day. And our wonderful coaches here sharing their time and their expertise to help you to get to the bottom of things. I've really enjoyed that as a focus on a topic. We've not done that before on Ask the Coach. So a deep dive into negotiation from all the different angles Thank you so much for your shares. Gary, have a lovely evening. I'm sure the cocktail glass will be on the side very soon.
Thank you very much.
We'll finish off our afternoon here in the UK, and everyone have a wonderful weekend. The sun's just coming out, fingers crossed. We know it's going to be 38 there tomorrow, Gary.
It's unbearable. Only another month of it to go.
Oh, I love Thailand. Anyway, hopefully there's sun wherever you are, and we wish you all a lovely weekend. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.